I adjusted my simple black blazer as I approached the grand entrance of the Waterford Country Club. Tonight was my father's retirement party as CFO of Meridian Technologies, and the guest list read like a who's who of corporate America. The service entrance is around back, the doorman said dismissively, eyeing my understated outfit. I'm James Morrison's daughter, I said quietly, showing my invitation. His expression shifted from disdain to barely concealed pity. Everyone in the corporate world knew about James Morrison's disappointing younger daughter, Rachel, the one who'd walked away from a promising position at Meridian to find herself. If only they knew I'd spent the last 5 years methodically working my way up through Meridian's international divisions under a different name, carefully hidden from my family's influence. The ballroom was already filled with executives in designer suits and their wives in couture dresses. My older sister Amanda held court near the center, her Cartier bracelet catching the light as she gestured. "Oh, Rachel," she called out, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Mom was worried you wouldn't make it. Though, couldn't you have dressed more appropriately?" I smiled, knowing my simple blazer cost more than her entire outfit. "I came straight from work." "Work?" she laughed. "Is that what you're calling your little consulting business now?" My little consulting business had actually been my cover while I revolutionized Meridian's Asian operations, but they didn't need to know that yet. "Rachel." My mother's voice carried across the room. "You're late and, oh dear, is that what you're wearing?" She approached with my father, both of them looking uncomfortable at my presence. Dad was retiring after 30 years at Meridian, and his disappointment in my career choices still stung him. "The children's table is over there," Mom said, gesturing to a corner. "Since you didn't RSVP with a +1, we thought you'd be more comfortable with the younger crowd." I watched them share knowing looks. Poor Rachel, still single, still struggling in her career while Amanda had married a VP and was on track to make partner at her law firm. My phone buzzed. A message from Meridian's board chairman. "Everything's set for the announcement. Time to reveal the new CEO." I smiled, tucking my phone away. "Actually, Mom, I should probably stay close to the main table. There's going to be an important announcement tonight." "Oh, honey," she patted my arm condescendingly. "The announcements are all about your father's retirement and the new CEO. You know, actual corporate news." "Speaking of the new CEO," Amanda chimed in, "I hear it's someone brilliant. Completely transformed our Asian markets. Very mysterious though, operates under a pseudonym for privacy." I bit back a laugh. "They only knew." "Rachel," my father finally spoke, his voice tired. "Just try not to cause any scenes tonight. This is important." I remembered all the times he'd told me I was throwing my life away, that I'd never understand corporate leadership like Amanda did. Those lectures had fueled my determination to succeed on my own terms. The board chairman clinked his glass, calling for attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're here tonight to honor James Morrison's 30 years of service to Meridian Technologies. But first, an important announcement." My mother steered me firmly toward the kids' table. "Go on, dear. The grown-ups need to pay attention now." I stayed where I was, watching my father step forward to receive his retirement accolades. Soon, very soon, everything would change. "And now," the chairman continued, "I'd like to introduce Meridian's new CEO, the brilliant mind behind our Asian division's unprecedented success." My phone buzzed again. "You're on." My mother was trying to push me toward the corner when the chairman's voice rang out. "Please welcome our new Chief Executive Officer, Rachel Morrison." The sound of shattering champagne glasses echoed through the suddenly silent ballroom. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. My mother's hand froze mid-push, her perfectly manicured fingers trembling against my arm. Amanda's champagne glass slipped from her grasp, creating a crystalline explosion at her feet that nobody moved to clean up. "There must be some mistake," my father said, his voice cracking. "Rachel is the architect behind Meridian's 300% growth in Asian markets," the chairman finished, smiling broadly. "Operating under the name RM Chin for the past 5 years, she has transformed our international operations and positioned Meridian as a global leader in tech innovation." Amanda's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. "RM Chin? But that's the mysterious executive you were just praising?" I supplied, finally stepping away from my mother's now limp grip. "Yes, that would be me." The whispers started spreading through the ballroom like wildfire. Executives who had dismissed me moments ago were suddenly straightening their ties and plastering on ingratiating smiles. But you've been doing small-time consulting work, my mother stammered. All those missed family dinners, those business trips to Asia, were board meetings, merger negotiations and corporate restructuring, I confirmed, walking toward the podium. Though I have to say your assumptions about my failure made it much easier to work in secret. My father's face had turned an interesting shade of pale. The Asian expansion, the digital transformation initiative, the Morrison method of corporate restructuring. Named after me, Dad. Not you. I reached the podium and turned to face the crowd. Though I have to thank you, all those years of telling me I'd never understand corporate leadership really motivated me to prove you wrong. The chairman handed me a glass of champagne. Rachel has insisted on working under a pseudonym to ensure her success was based purely on merit, not family connections. Her identity was known only to the board and our major shareholders. Amanda pushed forward, her designer dress wrinkled in her agitation. But I'm the successful one. I'm the one who followed Dad's path. You followed his path, I agreed. I built my own. My phone buzzed again, a message from my executive assistant. Stock prices already rising on CEO announcement. Press waiting for your statement. The chairman cleared his throat. Rachel's first act as CEO will be to implement her Morrison method across all global divisions. The same strategy that tripled our Asian market share. The Morrison method? My father whispered. My retirement presentation included praise for that strategy. But I said I wished I'd thought of it myself. I remember, I said softly. I was in the back of the room when you gave that presentation. Right after you told Mom what a shame it was that I'd never amounted to anything. The color that had drained from his face now came rushing back. Several of his colleagues shifted uncomfortably, no doubt remembering their own dismissive comments about the wayward Morrison daughter. My mother finally found her voice. All this time, when we thought you were struggling, I was running major portions of Meridian Technologies. I finished. Those small consulting jobs? Cover stories for when I was restructuring entire divisions. That cheap apartment? A penthouse I bought after my first successful merger. The chairman raised his glass. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Meridian's youngest ever Chief Executive Officer, Rachel Morrison. The applause that followed was thunderous, though I noticed Amanda's hands remained firmly at her sides, her face a mask of shock and building fury. Rachel, my father stepped forward, his voice unsteady. We. Save it, Dad, I said, but not unkindly. We have more pressing matters. Your retirement party has just become my promotion announcement, and there are reporters waiting outside for comments about Meridian's new direction. My phone buzzed yet again. Wall Street Journal requesting exclusive interview. Forbes wants cover story on the hidden CEO. I turned to address the crowd, but not before catching my mother frantically texting, probably updating her society friends about her suddenly successful younger daughter. As my first official act as CEO, I said clearly, watching Amanda's face carefully, I'm announcing a complete restructuring of our corporate leadership. The future I'd carefully built was finally coming into view, and the expressions on my family's faces told me they were only beginning to understand just how much everything had changed. The next hour passed in a blur of congratulations, press statements and carefully orchestrated announcements. I watched from the podium as my family tried to process the seismic shift in their perfectly ordered world. Ms. Morrison, a senior VP who'd earlier dismissed me, approached. I had no idea. That proposal I rejected last month will be implemented next quarter, I finished smoothly. Along with several other changes to our corporate structure. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the announcement. News of my identity was spreading through the business world like wildfire. Hidden heir, Meridian's secret successor. The Morrison method, how a failed daughter revolutionized tech. Corporate America's greatest undercover boss. Amanda cornered me by the champagne fountain, her perfect makeup slightly smeared. How could you do this? I was supposed to be the successful one. Success isn't a zero-sum game, sister dear, I replied, watching her flinch at my calm tone. Though I have to admit your constant bragging about your law firm partnership made my undercover work much easier. No one looks too closely at the failure, when they're busy admiring the star. But I'm the one who followed the plan, she hissed. Corporate law, strategic marriage, all the right connections. And how's that working out? I asked mildly. Your husband's VP position at Anderson Tech is about to become very interesting, considering Meridian just acquired their main division. Her face went pale. What? Oh, didn't I mention? That merger you heard rumors about. It's Anderson Tech signed the papers this morning. You might want to have a chat with David about his new boss. I smiled. Me. My mother appeared at Amanda's elbow, her society mask firmly back in place. Darling, everyone's asking about you. Mrs. Chen from the board says you lived in her Shanghai compound for a year. His mom. All those times you told people I was finding myself in Asia, I was actually restructuring our entire Pacific operations. Mrs. Chen was kind enough to keep my secret. But her mask slipped slightly. All those times you borrowed money were carefully orchestrated transfers to maintain my cover, I explained. Every penny was returned with interest through offshore accounts. Check your statements. My father stood at the edge of our group, looking lost in his own retirement party. The man who'd spent years lecturing me about corporate strategy was finally seeing the full scope of what I'd built under his nose. The Morrison method, he said quietly. That quarterly earnings presentation, you were there. Front row, Dad. Wearing a catering uniform. I watched you take credit for my strategy, telling everyone how brilliant it was. I kept my voice neutral. It was actually the moment I decided to accept the CEO position. The chairman approached our little family group, beaming. Rachel, the board members are ready for your first official meeting. And the press is getting impatient. I checked my watch, a subtle Patek Philippe that cost more than Amanda's car. Time to face the cameras. Mom, Dad, I'll have my office set up a proper family meeting next week. Amanda, you might want to bring David. We should discuss his transition. As I turned to leave, my father's voice stopped me. Rachel, all those lectures about corporate leadership, about following the right path, were excellent motivation, Dad. Every time you said I'd never understand business, I worked harder. Every time Mom lamented my wasted potential, I closed another deal. Every time Amanda bragged about her success, I built something bigger. The chairman gestured urgently. The press was waiting. But, I continued, straightening my simple blazer, we can discuss all of that later. Right now, I have a company to run. My mother stepped forward, tears threatening her perfect makeup. Sweetheart, we never knew. That was the point, Mom. Success tastes sweeter when you earn it yourself. I paused. Though I have to thank you all, your consistent underestimation gave me the perfect cover to build an empire. The ballroom had transformed from a retirement party to what the press would later call the Great Revelation. Executives who'd ignored me all evening now stood at attention, waiting for acknowledgement from their new CEO. Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman announced, Ms. Morrison will now take questions from the press. As cameras flashed and reporters called out questions, I caught one last glimpse of my family, my father's shocked pride, my mother's calculating re-evaluation, and Amanda's crumbling superiority. Ms. Morrison, how does it feel to become America's youngest tech CEO? What inspired the Morrison method? Was your family's underestimation part of your strategy? I stepped up to the microphone, my voice clear and confident. The best success stories are often written in silence. I chose to let my work speak for itself, free from family expectations or corporate nepotism. The Morrison method isn't just about restructuring companies. It's about recognizing that true leadership doesn't need constant validation. The reporters scribbled frantically as I continued. My father spent 30 years building Meridian Technologies. I spent 5 years transforming it. Today isn't just about a retirement or a promotion. It's about the future of corporate leadership. Amanda's face was a study in conflicting emotions as she watched her unsuccessful sister command the room. My mother had already pulled out her phone, no doubt updating her social media with carefully curated photos of her brilliant younger daughter, Meridian's new CEO. My father stood quietly, perhaps remembering all the times he'd lectured me about understanding business. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that his retirement party had become the launch pad for the next generation of Morrison leadership. Just not in the way he'd planned. The chairman raised his glass one final time. To Rachel Morrison, proof that the best leaders don't always follow the expected path. As the crowd echoed the toast, I caught my reflection in the ballroom's gilded mirrors. The disappointing daughter had orchestrated the corporate coup of the decade, all while her family dismissed her as a failure. Success, I'd learned, doesn't need an audience to grow. Sometimes the quietest moves make the loudest statements. And as I prepared to lead Meridian Technologies into its next chapter, I couldn't help but smile at the ultimate irony. The child they'd banished to the kids' table was now sitting at the head of a global corporate empire. The next morning, the headlines told the story. Morrison Family Dynamics: How a Father's Doubt Fueled a Daughter's Empire. From kids' table to boardroom, the secret rise of Rachel Morrison. Meridian's new era. Youngest Sue reveals 5-year undercover success. My office at Meridian headquarters, previously my father's, now displayed a single framed photo. Me in a catering uniform at last year's shareholders' meeting, serving champagne while the board praised my anonymous work. A perfect reminder that success doesn't always wear a designer label, and the best revenge is served with a side of corporate acquisition papers. Sometimes the kids' table has the best view of the empire.